Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Shankly Sessions, the Liverpool podcast we bring you each and every week on the upper tier. If you could head out there, smash that subscribe and bell notification button, and also press the bell notification button to make sure that you are alerted of any content that we upload, especially coming into October, where football is going to be crazy. I think for Liverpool, I think it's 9 matches in the month of October, which is basically over two a week, like on average and stuff like that. So it's going to be absolutely crazy in October. We, of course, will be bringing you all the action. We'll be doing match previews, match reactions, player ratings, all that kind of good stuff, and anything else that pops up in between. As always, if you could also like the video and make sure you're showing your support for the channel as we try to grow it. Tonight, we're going to bring you a kind of a midterm report for Liverpool and kind of discuss a number of topics and where we think things are going right, where we think things are going wrong, um, looking from the outside in, giving our opinion and stuff like that. And as always, we'd welcome your opinion in the comments if you're watching the channel. But let's get into this, and this is the way we're going to break it down. I did a bit of work on this over the last few days, but basically the midterm report. We're going to do a review of the start of the season. So we're going to have a look at the fixtures that we played in, the results that we got, how we think we performed, what we could have done better, where we kind of fell down. Then we're going to have a look at the transfer window, which I'm sure is going to be a contentious topic to look at and stuff like that. I think we badly failed in the transfer window. We're going to have an honest view of the current squad situation, where we see ourselves exposed, what could happen over the next few months. Obviously, we've got another, I think, a month or so, or a month and a half, and then we're helter skelter into the World Cup break, and then we'll be back, of course, Stevens' Day with the football. We're going to have a look at the season objectives, what we thought going into the season, and coming out. Do we need an adjustment now? And I suppose the answer would be yes. Then we're going to have a quick look at some tactical formations and stuff like that and the options, and discuss whether we really believe that we're playing in a formation that suits the signings that have come in, or maybe we could change that up, or is it like a re-education on the players in terms of playing a different way? And we'll talk about obviously Luis Diaz and Darwin Nunez, Carvalho, and those players that have come in. Obviously, then we're going to talk about Jude Bellingham. He's the hot topic at the moment in terms of Liverpool fans. Most fans are convinced we're going to get him. The numbers changes every day. Last I heard, it was 130 million, 140 million, stuff like that. So the real question on this is, if we were to push the button on this next summer, um, typically what we've seen in the past, he would be the only signing then. We might pick up another one on a free or a low level one or something like that. But similar to what we did with Darwin Nunez, similar to Kanate, when we spend a lot of money on a player, then we back off. And the question is, if the only player we brought in is Jude Bellingham, then the question remains, is that enough? Pending being another year on and what we know about the midfield as it is. And if that's not enough, then the question is, should we be spending 130 million on Jude Bellingham, or should we be looking at other options, maybe two midfielders around the 50, 55 million, and maybe a midfielder for 30 million to pad out the squad? Um, let's see your thoughts on that and stuff like that. And we have strong thoughts here on that. And then I think we have to have a look at like Jurgen Klopp, Pep Linders, Julian Ward. A lot of talk about that at the moment. Pep Linders releasing the book, seems to be getting a lot of heat and stuff like that about it and all, and a lot of hassle and stuff like that in relation to the book. And obviously Jurgen Klopp, we have to have a talk about that as well. And Julian Ward, since he's taken over from Michael Edwards, how do we feel that has gone? And then we're going to talk about FSG. I think we have to talk about FSG. Does the timing of stuff there at the moment, stuff that. But we'll give you a breakdown on the pros and the cons of FSG and stuff like that. And also in recent times, we'll obviously talk about just as the transfer window ended and Mello came in on a season-long loan and stuff like that, then a day later they come out with a report saying they've made X amount of money and all this and this, that, and the other. And it's so frustrating as a fan and stuff like that. But let's begin. Let's begin with the start of the season. And if you have a look here, these are the fixtures that we have played. Safe to say they haven't gone the way we thought. And we'll touch on that, of course, in our season objectives and adjustments if they need be. But we started out obviously with Fulham with a 2-2 draw. Again, very lackluster performance. Didn't hit the ground running at all. Lucky to escape with a draw, I think. And looked very tired. Looked as if we were still on pre-season and stuff like that. Ted is in the comments here. How are you, Ted? Don't forget to check out Ted's channel, Retrotainment, and they do Retrotainment recast as well. Himself and Greg over there knocking it out of the park along with Carl Sherlock, doing great stuff on recasting old movies and classic movies and stuff like that, and also reviewing movies and stuff like that. And also check out his channel, stuff like that. Absolutely not happy at all, Ted, and you'll hear that throughout this episode. But yeah, then we moved on and we said, okay, it's the start. It was Craven Cottage, generally not an easy place to go and stuff like that. So we moved on to a home game against Crystal Palace, and again we had quite a lackluster performance again, drawing 1-1 with them. And again, we created a lot of chances in terms of some of our play has been good in the 2 thirds leading up to the final third, but in the final third we have kind of struggled, creating a lot of chances, but misfiring and not hitting the target and stuff like that. And again, it was a very frustrating day against Crystal Palace. Drew 1-1. Then came the real eye opener. I was away watching this away in Orlando in Florida. Man United 2, Liverpool 1. The first half was as bad a first half as you'll see from Liverpool. Not to take anything away from Man United, but Man United were excellent on the day, and they simply just outplayed us and outbullied us at times. And to be honest with you, I don't think the score is a reflection of the game, really. We were better second half, but first half, again, we were shocking. And that seems to be a thing that's happened this season, where we've been very slow to start games and getting caught giving up a goal. And then it's a real struggle to get back into these games. And that's a real worry as well. Then we went out, as a reaction of the United game, we went out and we absolutely trashed Bournemouth 9-0. And it was as good a performance as you'll see. Everything clicked, every pass went our way, and it could have been a lot more. 11 or 12 wouldn't have flattered it really with the chances that we had and stuff like that. And then we were thinking, right, this is our opportunity now. Let's start the season. Let's get it going. Let's kick on from there. Then we had the Newcastle game, which we won 2-1. Again, not a great performance, a real struggle. Created a number of opportunities, but Newcastle were very strong as well. And in the end, it took a goal from Carvalho in the 98th minute, I think it was, to steal the points there, really, when Newcastle fully deserved a draw. Eddie Howe would have been frustrated walking away there, and you were seeing on the night as well, there was quite a meltdown between both benches and stuff like that, and both sets of managers and stuff. We seen with Newcastle as well. Once Isaac put them ahead as well, there was a bit of sort of play there in terms of like trying to wind down the clock and wasting time from very early on. Ted back in the comments again. Very like United of last season at the moment. Need to go behind before pulling the finger out. Yeah, and it's not even that, Ted. It's even when you go behind, they don't even pull the finger out. You know what I mean? It's still a bit lackluster sticking to what they do, but yeah, very much so. Then we moved into September. I was away in Cardiff at Clash of the Castle with Darren and the lads, and the Everton game was going on. So I didn't see a lot of the Everton game, but I did catch it later on. Again, a very drab affair. Again, very lucky in terms of getting out of there with a draw at times. Just looked so lackluster. They seem to be first to everything. Obviously better in the second half. Again, seems to be the conversation that comes up. But it was a real struggle, and we drew against Everton. Again, not a great result. So if you look at those first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 results in the league, the message really was very good against Bournemouth, lucky against Newcastle, lucky against Everton, lucky against Fulham, and Crystal Palace could have. We should have won that game, but we didn't. And United, in fairness, played us that day. So yeah, not a great start, and certainly not the start we were looking for. So we move into September. Then we've Napoli. Napoli beating us 4-1 over there in the first round of the Champions League, first group game. This was a real wake-up call, I think, both for the owners and for Jurgen Klopp and for the team. And I'm sure there was a fairly strong heart-to-heart after that. And then, of course, the Queen passed away, so the Wolves game was postponed. which I wasn't too upset about because I think we really needed time to gather our thoughts and get the group together and figure out what the hell was going on. Because Napoli that night absolutely made us look ordinary, and it could have been 6 or 7-1, to be honest. So yeah, we needed that time to pull ourselves together. So we came out then against Ajax in the second game in that group stage, and we beat Ajax 2-1. Again, a much improved performance, but again, it seemed like everything was a kind of a tough old struggle to get stuff done. But again, we came out and we got the result that we needed. We had to win, anything but a win, and we would have been in serious trouble in the group, and we could have been staring down the barrel of exiting the Champions League and potentially going into Thursday night football, which would be an absolute disaster for the club, both in terms of trying to operate in the league and also that whole Thursday Sunday conundrum, which is an absolute nightmare. Then obviously the Chelsea game got postponed as well, based on the availability of policing on the day and also the availability of TV trucks that are caught up getting ready for the coverage of the funeral that took place on the Monday. So this is where we stand in terms of our start to the league. So very indifferent. Um, but I would say the Ajax game certainly was a huge improvement from the Napoli game. And probably the games being postponed probably did us a favour, even though it's going to come at us thick and fast and catch up in later months and stuff whenever these are rescheduled. But I think it was a good time to get stuff postponed because we were really, really struggling for form at the time. Next up, I want to take a look at the transfer window. And if you look at our transfer window, probably going to go full screen for this, for my eyes and stuff like that. But we started out, let's talk about the ins. So Fabio Carvalho came in, Darwin Núñez came in, Calvin Ramsey came in, and Arthur Melo on the last day of the transfer window on a season-long loan from Juventus. Again, in my thoughts, very poor business in terms of what we had carried out there. I think signing Darwin Núñez, I think is a reasonable signing. It was a lot of money and stuff like that. He's taken a bit of time to bed in, and obviously the sending off from the headbutt didn't help things where he missed 3 games. Carvalho, I think, is a very good signing. He was an absolute star last year in the Championship, and I think he'll be a really, really good player for Liverpool going forward. Calvin Ramsey, lot of spotlight on this boy up in Scotland and stuff like that. Seems a really, really good footballer, but came in with an injury and is still recovering from that injury. And of course, Arthur Melo, who hadn't played since May, came in on a season-long loan, which seemed to me, no disrespect to the lad, a kind of a desperation move in terms of an acceptance that we had a problem in midfield. It's amazing how long it took for that acceptance to hit home, because in reality, we knew that was there all along and that we needed midfielders to come in. And just some of the players that went out, obviously Divock Origi free to AC Milan, Lloris Karius has gone to Newcastle, Ben Woodburn has gone out, Connor Bradley's gone out on loan, Sadio Mane was the big one, 35 million to Bayern Munich, Minamino for nearly 16 million to Monaco, Neco Williams 18 million to Nottingham Forest, and then you've got Tom Clayton, Ben Davis, Reece Williams on loan, Tyler Morton on loan. Tyler was kind of a shock to me as well, because they had spoke highly about Tyler during pre-season, that they were going to adjust the way he played and stuff like that, and Klopp was going to work with him personally to work out a few things and stuff like that. And then we hear he went on loan to Blackburn Rovers, so maybe that was the plan, to get him out there like what Harvey did. Leighton Clarkson out on loan, Sepp van den Berg out on loan, and Max Voltman out on loan. But what that really tallies up, and there was a whole platter of other ones, younger kids and stuff like that who had gone out and stuff like that. But the reality is, when you sum it all up, was our transfer window net spend was about, a negative 5 million. So basically, we spent 5 million in the transfer window from what we got in. So when you look at that, I mean, the questions that we ask as Reds, we say, well, is this enough? And the answer to that clearly was no. We were carrying a lot of injuries. We knew that the midfield was a little bit brittle. And we seen the first game of the season, straight out of the traps, Thiago got injured and we lost him for the guts of 5 weeks or whatever it is. Konate also got injured as well in a throwaway game, a friendly in pre-season as well, which was needless. And that caused us problems as well, because he was by far creating that great bond with Virgil van Dijk and stuff like that, and was arguably our man of the match in the Champions League final. So it was a big loss. So yeah, there was a little bit of exposure there from the injuries and stuff like that, especially in midfield. And we knew that we had to upgrade the midfield anyway, because we knew Fabinho, okay, is that stalwart who sits in there in the 6. But if you look at Thiago, we know you're going to get X amount of games out of him, then he might break down or he might get injured unless you manage him. We know that Jordan, who got injured as well, has been struggling as well in the eight. Harvey has been doing a reasonable job in there as well, but he's only a kid. And in the last couple of games, he looked like he was suffering from a little bit of burnout, that he had played a lot of minutes already and was carrying the weight of that midfield on him. Carvalho had come in, and when he had come in at times, he had done really, really well. Darwin had done sort of okay till that sending off and stuff like that. But again, it's going to take time for him to bed in, but I've no doubt he'll become a huge player for us. But again, we'll talk about it in the tactical section, where we need to just figure out how we want to play with this new kind of approach, if you like, or this new formation, or how we jig things around and stuff like that. Because I don't know whether Darwin Núñez works in a 4-3-3. I think the expectation of how he played, which is essentially in the box as a poacher and a finisher, to now having to work so hard and stuff like that in that kind of central role. I'm not sure whether that plays into his strengths, and we will look at that in the formation. But safe to say there was quite an imbalance there in the transfer window. And when you look at the likes of Man City, and I know they actually made a slight profit out of their transfer window, but if you look at the quality that they brought in and stuff like that, Haaland coming in, Julian Alvarez coming in, they brought in Calvin Phillips, and then out the door went Sterling, Jesus and Zinchenko and stuff like that. But you can see that they could lose those players and still be very, very strong and still replace them. And already we were kind of playing catch up. I know last season we lost the league by a point. But a point is huge. It's not like let's not, when you look over the course of a season and stuff like that, a point doesn't seem like a big thing. But it's the difference in those moments, like the Brentford game, like the Spurs game, like the Brighton game, those games. It's in those moments. Have you got the personnel to see you through those moments and stuff like that? And that's where it really fell down. But there was definitely an imbalance there. When you think about it, we brought in Darwin Núñez, and out went Divock, out went Taki, out went Sadio Mane. And I think at the time, we looked at Sadio Mane and we were thinking, yeah, we wish him well and best of luck. And he had decided he wanted to move on and stuff like that. But I don't think we really, really realised what we were losing in terms of his overall work rate and how he affected the press and all that kind of thing. And we can see it now. The gap that he has left up front for us is absolutely massive. And directly in there, Darwin Núñez is a totally different player. Jota will be kind of similar in terms of going in there with his work rate and various things like that. But Darwin Núñez is not the same. He's not that guy that works that heavy work rate into the press and stuff like that. So again, we got to figure out how we want to play. But certainly I was very disappointed in the transfer window. I thought we would have brought in at least a top-notch midfielder, and on top of that, a lone midfielder as well, especially when we seen what was happening. The stuff with Keita is up in the air, and we're going to have a look at the squad we're going to cover the squad in the next slide and stuff like that. And that's where we will actually see where fundamentally we've had a lot of problems. So if we look at our squad, and we'll go full screen again, because my poor eyes. If you look at the squad in there at the moment, if you look at goalkeepers, Alisson, who no doubt is top class and has been top class for us again this season. One or two iffy moments, but again, he's been absolutely outstanding. Caoimhín Kelleher, I think, is a suitable backup, absolutely excellent as a number 2. And Adrian in there as a 3 is what it is. But goalkeeper-wise, I think we're pretty much covered. Caoimhín obviously is carrying an injury and stuff like that, so we need to get him back. Hopefully it'll be after the international break, he'll be back. And then we'll have our full complement of goalkeepers. In defence is a bit of a conundrum at the moment. Obviously, Calvin Ramsey hasn't played yet. He's been carrying that injury. But if you look at the form of there, Konate's been out injured as well. Joel was out injured and had to come back. Now Phillips had to stand in. Joe Gomez had to stand in central, who I think is much better on the right. Obviously, Trent's form at times has dipped. At times he's been okay, but his form has dipped. Andy's form has dipped slightly as well. Costas has come in and looked bright and looked lively when he has come in and stuff like that. So he's a reasonable backup there for Andy. But I mean, the real overall question really in here in defence is, like, who is the guy to partner Virgil? It's probably not Joe. Joe looks more like a backup for Trent. And what happens then when Calvin Ramsey is available? Obviously, we're covered on the other side with Robbo, with Costas. And then it's the defense in the middle. So who I think Virgil is the outstanding guy. Although his own form has struggled this season as well, he seems to have been a bit off the pace as well and caught out a few times as well. Silly little things that you wouldn't normally see in his game. There's no doubt Ibu comes back in Konate as soon as he's fit, I would imagine. Matip has come in and done really, really well for us, as we expect from Joel, and I always love to see him bringing the ball out from the back. Nat has kind of drifted into being a squad player and stuff like that. But I think overall in defence, when we figure out what we want to do with Trent, is Trent going to stay in that right side of defence, or are they going to change it up? Are they going to move him into midfield and buy a right back, or is there another option there? What is their thinking on it? That has to be figured out in terms of defence. And once that's figured out, then I think we'll be okay in terms of that. And the coverage that we have once we have a full complement. Midfield is my biggest bone of contention. Fabinho obviously is in there. He's absolutely world class. Again, he's been a little bit off it so far this season, but at times been really, really good. But we know the class that's there in Fabinho. And at times when he's been exposed, is at times when he's been covering for other players and stuff like that in midfield. Thiago, we know how good he is. He pulls the strings. He's Mr. Creative and stuff like that. But again, trying to protect him and coach him through a whole season and stuff like that. And we could be staring down the barrel of another big season where you're playing 55 plus games. Who knows? Last year it was 63. It was a massive amount of games. So we have to look at that midfield. And again, you look at Naby Keita. I don't know what's going on there. One minute he's available, the next minute he's not available. He's out injured for Liverpool, but then he's declared available for Guinea. There's a lot of crap going on there at the moment. And he's also going through contractual stuff as well. I'm not sure whether Keita is going to fit in there or whether they're going to move him on. I'm not too sure. He's come in at times. He's been okay, and at times he's been really, really poor. And we've seen that in some of the match reactions we've done and the ratings and stuff like that. At times he hasn't reached anywhere near the potential of what we thought he would be. James Milner signed a 1-year extension, of course, came in because of injuries and stuff like that. He's been thrust into the team and stuff like that. I'm sure he was sitting back thinking, a number of Carabao Cup games and maybe an FA Cup games and stuff like that, and maybe coming on as a tactical substitution to wind down the clock a little bit towards the end of the game, stuff that. But he's been thrust in. I think he's played left back. I think he's played right back. I think he's played midfield. And he's really, really struggled at time with those full matches. And no surprise, let's be honest here, he's getting on in the years now and stuff like that. And although he's an absolute fitness phenom and stuff like that, still he struggles at times with the movement of the game and stuff like that. And he's just been thrust into that position because of injuries. Jordan, we now started out this season not great, had a couple of poor performances and stuff like that. Then he got injured, went out of the team and stuff like that. He's really struggled in that 8 position, and he's looking more and more now at the moment like he'd be a backup for the 6 for Fabinho as opposed to an 8. And again, that remains to be seen what way they handle that. Ox, that ship has sailed for me at this stage. I know people have spoken about it, or I've spoken about it on many podcasts at this stage. I witnessed it firsthand at the Brighton game last season at Anfield. Absolutely shocking, and nowhere near the level I've expected. And that boy, I don't think he has any chance of recouping the form that he had before when he was outstanding. I just don't see it. I think he's just too injury prone now. Curtis, it's a massive year for him. He really has to have a breakout season this season. He has struggled. In the last 3 years, there hasn't been a huge amount of development for him and stuff like that. At times he has shone, but at times he does really, really good stuff. And then into that final tour, just that final decision making of a shot or a pass or a slip pass or a switch or whatever it is, he doesn't seem to have that nous in that final decision making. Kind of gets a little bit confused about what he wants to do, and more often than not makes the wrong decision. I don't know after 3 years. Or whatever it is, whether you can coach that back in and get that in there or not, I'm not too sure. So a decision will have to be made there towards the end of the season, depending on how the season goes. Harvey has come in, has been a bright light for us, really. He's been the guy, along with Fabio, at times when he's come in, who've had to carry the weight of the expectation of the Liverpool side, where we've been quite blunt up front, and these are the guys we've had to look to make things happen. Harvey's had a real good start to the season. He's generally played really, really well. But it looks like the weight of that expectation is weighing heavy on him now. And he looked a little bit tired in the last couple of games that he played in, like he needed a break out of the squad. But unfortunately, with the issues we had with injuries and stuff like that, no, we weren't able to do that. Carvalho's come in again, a breath of fresh air, has played really, really well. Has had a couple of real good substitution games and stuff like that and all. Seems to come on and raise the energy of the team. Very like Coutinho-esque when Coutinho was with us. Picks up the ball, very, very positive, wants to go at defences and stuff like that. And was brilliant for that Newcastle game where we grabbed that late win in the 98th minute. Arthur's come on. We haven't seen a whole lot of him. I think he came on in the Champions League and stuff like that. But hasn't kicked the ball really since May. His fitness is way off the boil. And it's going to take a bit of time to get him up to speed. I did read the other day that he's hired a nutritionist and a personal fitness coach and one other coach as well to get him up to speed to where he needs to be and stuff like that, because there was talk going around that he might end the loan deal as early as January, which would lead you to believe that maybe they have another plan in terms of bringing someone in, or someone has become available. Maybe they have a deal in place. Not too sure. Forwards, if you look at our forward line, I think when they're all fit, I think there's a reasonable amount to cover there. There is questions over Mo Salah's form, but no doubt that will come good, and it came good the other day for Egypt. I think he bagged 2 the other day for Egypt, and he bagged a goal. I think he bagged a goal in the Ajax game as well. So like it's okay. We need to get him back there again. Again, we're kind of playing him out very, very wide, which doesn't give him a lot of opportunity. He's getting crowded out by defenders doubling up on him and stuff like that, and it's too much to ask him. I'd like to see him more in closer to the 18-yard box and stuff like that, and trying to get him in between the two sticks where he's most effective and stuff like that. He seems to be playing very, very wide, like a real wide winger at the moment. Also, his link-up play between himself and Hendo and Trent has been poor at the moment, or for the last couple of games, been really disjointed and stuff like that. And we need to work on getting that back there again, that moving that they play between the three of them to absolutely confuse defences and stuff like that. I'd like to see that back there again. But Mo is definitely one we would expect coming back off the international break to really raise his game and go at it. Bobby, to me, looks like he's going to be second there in terms of a sub. He has come in a couple of times this season, and he's been okay. But more often flatters to deceive. Seems to be having to drop really, really deep at times to pick up the ball, way deeper than what he should be, which opens up that gap at the front, and that he has to try and move into as well while carrying the ball or opening it up with passing. And it's been a real struggle for Bobby. Diogo was out injured, but he's come back in. Obviously, he was lacking a bit of match fitness and stuff like that, but he's done what Diogo does. He goes in, he creates havoc in defences and stuff like that. He's always in around the ball. He always has a knife for where he needs to be to get on the end of things and stuff like that. And I think the international break will probably have done him the world of good in bringing up his fitness and stuff like that. So I'd expect big things from Jota when we get back. Luis Diaz has been again a shining light. He's a ball of energy, absolutely runs himself into the ground every game, very, very passionate, always likes breaking in from the left to the right for that ping shot into that far right corner and stuff like that. But again, I'd like to see him working. I'd like to see him getting even more clever about the way he does things, little slip passes for Nunez and stuff like that. That link-up play with himself and Nunez still hasn't quite hit the standards that we need. And of course, it will take time. We can't expect Diaz, Nunez and Salah to just take over from where we were with Mane, Bobby and Salah. So it'll take time for that to come together. But it will come together, pending on what they decide to do with the formation. That's kind of a breakdown of our squad as it is at the moment. But again, a lot of work to do in that midfield. As you can see, the issues that we face and stuff like that. We've got an ageing midfield, also some with injuries and stuff like that and all, and it needs to be bolstered with regular high-end midfielders if they're available. Now, Ted. Phil Trent not pushing out wide enough is affecting Salah getting into the right area at times. Yeah, it is. It's just that link-up play with them as well, where they come off each other and stuff like that. And it's not even a case of whether it's Salah or whether it's Trent. It's either one or the other, but it seems to be neither at the moment. They just seem to be on top of each other way out wide. Whereas I don't mind if it's Trent that goes in there, if it's not Salah, but one or the other. But at the moment, it seems to be both of them are staying out really, really wide at times. And it just isn't working. In terms of our season objectives, I'm sure we would have come into the season thinking right, well, let's go for it. We should be in a title race with Man City. Keep it tight and keep it close with them. We should be looking at going deep into the Champions League. And obviously putting up two good defences of our two domestic cups that we won last season. That would have been the objective going into the season. And especially coming off the back of that Community Shield, where we played really, really well against Man City and stuff like that. But again, we didn't carry that form into the league. But now what we have to ask ourselves really, do we need an adjustment now in that area? Or can we continue with those objectives the way they are? I think we've somewhat the win against Ajax has given us an opportunity to put ourselves back into the group stages of the Champions League and stuff like that. We've got two games coming up home and away against Rangers. I would expect us to take maximum points against them. But obviously, you've seen in the past, if we get a little bit complacent about the opposition, that's when we tend to drop points. But I think the two games against Rangers, nothing but 6 points will do. And how we do it, it doesn't matter. We just need to get it over the line, basically. But in terms of our season objectives, looking at the teams that are in the Champions League at the moment and looking at the way that they're performing, is it reasonable to assume that we could potentially go on and get to the final and win the Champions League this year? I'm not too sure. I don't think we've done enough in the transfer window. And I think with the players that are injury prone and stuff like that, like for instance, if Thiago gets injured, and we seen it last year when we went into the Champions League final where we played him, he was playing injured. He had gotten injured in the warm up, I think it was, in one of the cup finals. But we see when he comes out of the side or he's not at 100%, the team just doesn't have that oomph and creativity about it. And there's no one that can really come in and fill his void. And that's a real concern because of how injury prone he is. So I think in terms of our objectives, I think we have to kind of reassess it back again and ask ourselves, do we really feel we're going to be in a title race with Man City? I mean, you look at Man City, I know Arsenal are top of the league at the moment and stuff like that, and they're playing really good football under Mikel Arteta. They've made some really, really good signings that's working out well for them. Tottenham under Conte as well have done some really, really good business, and they look the business this year. They could do well. United are looking really, really well under Ten Hag. They've brought in some really good signings. They've bolstered their squad. Their bench looks much better, and they're playing with an air of confidence at the moment. You've seen it even in the international games over the weekend as well. Some of their key players are doing really well. Dalot was unbelievable for Portugal. Bruno was in there for Portugal. A lot of players doing really, really well for them at the moment. So United are going to figure in that. Chelsea, we're not too sure at the moment. Chelsea is kind of the unknown. Similar to ourselves, at times they've looked okay, and at times they've really, really struggled. Obviously, with Tuchel gone and Potter coming in, it'll take a bit of time for that to bed in, for him to figure out what his play is and how he wants to play and stuff like that. And he has to be afforded that time, and no doubt he'll have more money in January to spend, and probably in the summer as well, before we really see the formation of the Graham Potter Chelsea, if you like. So this could be an indifferent season for Chelsea. And then for ourselves, we just got to figure out what we're doing and stuff like that. How do we play to the strengths of the guys up front and get them humming? And try and get on a bit of a run there and pick up a bit of confidence. We've been lacking confidence greatly at the start of this season, really, really struggled. Some really poor performances and stuff like that. And we need to kind of iron that stuff out. Some of the mistakes we've been making at the back, figure out what our midfield is going to be, and also up front, how we get those three guys between the sticks to be scoring goals and not be so wide. But that will be figured out. But I think in terms of our objectives, I don't expect us to fall into, even at this early stage, I think we'd struggle in a title race at the moment. And I think the best thing we can do is just focus on getting points on the board and pushing ourselves into that top four spot and then see where it takes us. But if you look at Man City at the moment, the way they're playing and stuff like that, we are absolutely miles off that. Then, if you look at tactical formations and stuff like that, I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm not sure whether the traditional 4-3-3 that we play, I'm not sure whether that plays into Darwin Núñez's strengths, if you like. And I don't think it works for him, because his expectation is that he's going to get balls into him constantly, and he's going to be between the sticks and the guy to finish. And I don't know in a 4-3-3 whether that works, because if you look at how when Bobby's in there in the 4-3-3, how he has to work, it's very different to what Núñez is used to and stuff like that. So maybe it's an adjustment from him, or maybe it's adjustment from Liverpool in terms of the tactical arrangement, is how we look at his strengths and how we play to his strengths, because he's a goal machine once we figure that out. Ted back in the comments as well. I think everyone is miles off City at the moment. Absolutely, Ted. But I think in terms of, like, you look at Arsenal and Spurs and yourselves, you're playing good football and stuff like that. And, if you can keep that run going, who knows what's happening. Obviously, you've got a big Manchester derby coming up next weekend. So that'll be a real good one. Obviously, you played against us really well and you did brilliant against Arsenal as well. So it'll be interesting to see next weekend how you match up against City. That, to me, would be the real acid test to see how things are going to go. But we shall see. It's going to be a real struggle, anyone against City. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to talk to on tactical side of things. Now, this man is a man who's driving a lot of conversation at the moment, with a lot of clubs and stuff like that. Absolutely outstanding for Dortmund. What a player! Was kind of the shining light for England the other night in a poor England performance. So many players were poor. I think himself and Declan Rice were the only ones that really shone out to me the other night in terms of trying stuff and all. But this guy has caught the eye of all the top clubs. I mean, everyone from Real, Barca, Man City, Chelsea, United, everyone will want to sign this kid. So this kid, depending how he goes in the World Cup, and I assume he's going to be in the squad, there's no doubt about that. I think he's going to be one who's going to draw the eye. And if he has a really good World Cup, his value is going to escalate greatly. At the moment, they're talking somewhere in the region of 120 or 130 million. So the question really remains for Liverpool fans. If we go out next summer and we spend 130 million on Jude Bellingham, then we close the door on the safe. That's it. We won't be getting anyone else in. We'll have blown our absolute load on Jude Bellingham. Same as what we did this year with Darwin Núñez. So the question is, if Jude Bellingham comes into that Liverpool side, is that enough? Is that enough of what we need when you take into account Thiago, Kyrie's injuries, Keita, we don't know what's going to happen there, but has been miles off it. Jordan, another year on. James Milner will probably have moved on at that stage, or he might get a coaching role at Liverpool. Harvey's still developing. Carvalho's still developing. Ox out of the picture. We don't know what's going to happen with Curtis Jones. To me, it was a real opportunity this year to bring in a midfielder, to help with the spend that will be needed next summer. Because quite frankly, and I've been saying it on a number of podcasts, I think we need 2, if not 3 midfielders to come in to cover what's going to fall out of this over the next year. And we've seen it already in the first 2 months of the season. It's been a real exposure in midfield. So I don't know what you Reds fans think, but let us know in the comments. Is Jude Bellingham the missing key for Liverpool, or is he only part of the solution in terms of our midfield? Because it's going to be a real problem, because, as I said, if we spend 130 million on this boy, that's John Henry and the boys jumping on the plane straight back to America. Deal done. The transfer window over. Good luck. And I'm not sure whether just Jude Bellingham coming in will be enough to set Liverpool back where it needs to be. So that's the real question for you Reds fans. Let us know in the comments and stuff like that. What do you think? Will Jude Bellingham be enough, or will we need a hell of a lot more? So I thought I'd raise that as a issue. Finally, we need to talk about FSG and Jurgen Klopp. And when I talk about FSG, I'm talking about FSG. I now am at the stage where Jurgen Klopp, FSG, Pep Linders, Julian Ward, all these guys, they all come in under one kind of banner now at this stage. Because we heard it even from the gaffer throughout the last 6 weeks, where he said we have to find solutions within the squad, when clearly there was no solutions in the squad. Then there was an acceptance that we needed to sort out the midfield and stuff like that, when it was very clear from the beginning. And I know it's a difficult situation for him as well, because he kind of has to be the front for FSG, and he has to take a lot of the heat that comes with it and stuff like that in terms of transfer windows and stuff like that. But we said we'd take a look at FSG in terms of the pros and the cons and what's happened with them and stuff like that. I think the most staggering thing that we see here is basically that chart that you see on the screen there. That is the value of Liverpool Football Club and how it has risen under FSG in the last, say, 10, 11 years and stuff like that. But we've gone from the 300 million mark to anywhere up to 4.5 to 5 billion and stuff like that, the valuation of the club and stuff like that. So it's been massive. So if you look at the pros of FSG, they bought the club on the edge of bankruptcy and turned it into a financial powerhouse. The appointment of Jurgen Klopp and all the backroom staff was absolutely huge and pivotal in that. The continued development of Anfield, they're continuing to develop the stands and make it bigger, so the capacity is much bigger and stuff like that in order to be able to compete with some of the bigger clubs and stuff like that. And the new training facility is world class, absolutely no doubt about it. The development of the recruitment team has been huge as well under Michael Edwards, who's now moved on. It's now Julian Ward, but both the scouting and the use of advanced data has been huge in terms of most of the signings that we have made along this way have turned out reasonably well and have worked. The commercial development on the club of a global stage through its partners has been absolutely huge. As a commercial entity and stuff like that, Liverpool is absolutely massive and has become massive on a global stage. Winning the league after 30 years, which was massive for the club. We had tried for so many seasons to make it happen and stuff like that. Came close a couple of times, but after 30 years we got there, And obviously the formation of multiple foundations and support groups and all that kind of stuff, the LGBTQ community and all that kind of stuff, all the real good stuff that they do and all the charities that they support out there and the foundations, and giving back to the community is really, really good and really, really solid for the club. So that's some of the pros out there. If you look at the cons, obviously what unfolded, the European Super League, the naivety of that and stuff, that it was just going to happen when it wasn't. Their lack of football knowledge. They seriously lack actual football knowledge because they're from a distance and stuff like that. They don't really understand the game of football and stuff like that. Sometimes they try to equate it back to American sports and stuff like that, and it doesn't quite fit and stuff like that. And their lack of cultural awareness, in terms of, the culture of the city of Liverpool and how it supports the team and stuff like that. We've seen it with some of the match day costs, and they tried to bump ticket prices and, all that kind of stuff. Squad recruitment, not necessarily what they've recruited in, but every year we're told it's next year. Every year this midfielder. Last year we were told we're going to bring in a midfielder. We tried to sign Tchouaméni. He went to Real Madrid. We signed Darwin Núñez. No talk of a midfielder. The Tchouaméni money just disappeared, even though Mane was leaving. So it's that kind of squad recruitment and stuff like that. It's identifying, we can't keep on letting Jurgen and the team down by not bringing in the right recruitment. And at that time, and always talking about next year and next year. If you take it this year, we're talking about next year about bringing in a midfield and stuff like that. That's another season gone by where we potentially may or may not win that, and we will really struggle to compete with Man City. So why not just bring it in this year? FSG, they're swimming in money, bonuses all over the place, broadcasting rights all over the place, royalties off kits, the Nike deal, all these other bonuses. The bonus that we received, we won the 2 domestic cups, second in the Premier League, runners up in the Champions League and stuff like that. So they're absolutely swimming in money. There's no end to money there, at times disrespected and educated fan base, and this reverts back up to the Super League and stuff and questions like that and stuff like that. I don't think they really understand, the actual Liverpool fan there and how he understands Liverpool and how Liverpool is ingrained on his life and stuff like that. And they disrespect that from time to time, season ticket prices, match day ticket prices, and just that whole area. They've kind of normalised mediocrity and let the squad stagnate. You can see that in our midfield now, how aged our midfield is. And also in terms of some of the players there that are injury prone and stuff like that. And at times it's always been we've needed that bit of luck. We've needed that play. We've needed Joe Matip not to get injured. We've needed Thiago not to get injured. And I think if you're a world class team and you're set up in that way and you're set up for success, you don't rely on that stuff as much. I mean, obviously any player can get injured, but we know the history of some of these players and stuff like that, and we've had to manage them a certain way, which creates complications for the gaffer and stuff like that within the squad when he's having to try manage players through games and through the season, even from a very early stage and stuff like that. So I think they could do a little bit better in terms of the squad and their understanding of the squad instead of trying to rinse it another year, like wringing out that tea towel all the time and wringing it out into the sink again and again and again. Sure, Jordan will be fine. Sure, James will come in. Sure, Alex might not get injured and all that. Can't live on mites. We're up against Man City, arguably one of the best teams on the planet and stuff like that. Who have a fantastic coach, and they've brought in Haaland, who we've seen what he can do and stuff like that. Unbelievable. So this is what we're up against. Obviously, the handling of the COVID furloughing of staff and stuff like that left a bitter taste with people and stuff like that, and the lack of input and decision making. We could see even from recent interviews from Jurgen Klopp and stuff like that when we spoke about players coming in and stuff like that. He made it very clear that the club turn around and they say this is what it is and that's what it is. So there seems to be a lack of input in the decision making and stuff like that. And I think if they got more people involved, even from, you see at times then they bring in the guys from the different cop groups and stuff like that and the different supporters groups to get their ideas and their thoughts on decisions and stuff like that. But that's only in recent times, and it tends to be after the fact when they've made a bad decision. Then they bring these guys in to have a chat with them instead of bringing them in beforehand and understanding Liverpool Football Club, the culture of it, what it means to the city, the history, everything that's carried with that, and the weight of that. And not comparing it to a baseball team or a basketball team or whatever it is. It's not quite the same thing. It's a different game, a different culture, different city, and it means so much to so many people. So every decision that you make has an impact on those people's daily lives and stuff like that, and understanding the magnitude of that. They're the kind of things I looked at in terms of FSG. But again, I think in a transfer window here, and I can only assume, I do gather them together, but I can only assume that Jurgen Klopp wanted midfielders to come in, and it just didn't happen. And I don't know whether it wasn't made available to him, or whether the right midfielders weren't available, or whether he had targeted midfielders that weren't going to become available maybe until January or next season. Who knows? Only time will tell if that's the case. But certainly on the outside, it looks as if he probably wanted players to come in, but that he wasn't supported. But again, we don't know. So that's where it leaves us. That's our review, our midterm review of Liverpool at the moment, 2 months into the season, and where we kind of stand. Up next for us now is a game against Brighton this week. We will be dropping a preview of that game, and of course we'll be back with the match reaction and player ratings. It's going to be a massive month for content creators like myself on YouTube in terms of producing content. So make sure subscribe, bell notification button, and of course like all the content that's going up. Let us know what you think of the shows. Drop your thoughts down in the comments and stuff like that. On all those different topics. Especially I'd like to hear your comments on the Jude Bellingham situation. Do you feel that he will be enough? Because if he isn't, then we need to really think about what we're doing there in terms of the squad and the fallout, especially in that midfield. As always, if you want to contact us, it's the upper tier podcast at gmail.com. The Liverpool podcast is the Shankly Sessions, which is within the upper tier podcast on YouTube. So if you can do all that good stuff, if you want to contact us, we're also on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. You'll find us out there, the upper tier. You can contact us at any stage. And we will be back tomorrow night with the Monday mashup, where we're going to be looking at a review of the Nations League in terms of a bit of a player watch. We're also going to be doing a midterm review of the other top 6 teams. And we're also going to be talking about some news articles, including running down the top 10 in terms of most amount of followers on Instagram for footballers and stuff like that. So feel free to join us tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. It's going to be myself and Marky, our resident referee. Darren's taking the night off. He has something on, but no doubt he'll tune in. You're welcome to come along and join us. Lots of really, really good topics there. Certainly it's going to be interesting to do the midterm review for a lot of those clubs and stuff like that. Talk about who came in, who went out, where they find themselves, what their form is like, and what we've made of it. Me and Mark will be bringing you through that show tomorrow night for about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how quick we get through it. But until then, it's been a pleasure, Reds. Let's do this. Football is nearly back.